Ruby Alessandro was born into a world that glittered like crystal but could cut just as deep. At 18, she possessed all the luxuries others could only dream of: silken gowns that shimmered under candlelight, a bedroom ceiling painted with stars, and servants who moved like shadows to meet her every need. Yet none of it truly belonged to her. She was a bird in a gilded cage, her wings bound by her father's name. She was single-handedly raised by her father, Don Carlos Alessandro, a man whose wealth and power loomed like a storm over their sprawling estate, controlled every breath she took. Guards shadowed her every step, her words measured under the weight of expectation. She was porcelain behind glass, admired, polished, untouchable, and all she ever longed for was freedom. Whenever Ruby asked her father for permission to step outside, even just for a short stroll or to catch a glimpse of life beyond their mansion, his expression would harden. He'd remind her, almost sternly, that he had already given her everything she could possibly need. "Sweetheart, there's nothing out there for you. You're far too precious for that dangerous world. Trust me, I'm your father, and I want what's best for you." And with that, the matter would be closed, no matter how much Ruby pleaded. Each time, the rejection left her disheartened, retreating to her room to sulk in silence for hours. "Sometimes I wonder if the birds outside know they're freer than me," she would say, her voice heavy with longing. Then came George. He arrived one golden morning, sunlight spilling through the modest back entrance of the Alessandro estate. Tall, handsome, with kind eyes steady as the earth, George had returned from university on a rare break. A full scholarship had carried him far from the working-class streets of his youth, where he was the pride of his neighborhood. His visit was meant to surprise his mother, Maria, a housekeeper who had served the Alessandros faithfully for decades. He never expected to meet Ruby. She was in the garden when he first saw her, seated beneath a canopy of cherry blossoms, petals drifting like whispers into her auburn hair. Startled by his presence as he passed with a bundle of linens, their eyes met, a fleeting collision of two different worlds. "Who is he?" Ruby wondered. The air seemed to hold its breath. "Hello," he said gently. She offered a shy smile, her heart stuttering in a way it never had before. That evening, George lingered near the garden. Ruby returned the next day, drawn by curiosity and a hunger for something real. Slowly, like spring coaxing buds from bare branches, their conversations bloomed, about books, her love for poetry, his passion for history, about dreams and stars that seemed closer than her own life. George was unlike anyone she'd ever known. Brave without arrogance, gentle without weakness, real in a way that made her golden world feel hollow. He saw her not as Don Carlos' daughter, but as Ruby, the girl who scribbled dreams into the margins of forbidden novels. They fell in love quietly, recklessly. "With you, I feel like I'm not just someone's possession," Ruby confessed one night. "And with you," George replied with a smile that reached his eyes, "I believe in more than dreams. I believe in us." Notes slipped under teacups, glances across crowded rooms, hands brushing under moonlight. Ruby had never known a tenderness so fierce it felt like rebellion. Beneath the cherry blossoms, they whispered plans. Just one night beyond the estate gates, one stolen taste of freedom. But secrets in grand houses rot quickly. On the night they chose, Ruby stood by the wrought iron gate, clutching a small purse, her heart pounding with equal parts fear and exhilaration. Jasmine scented the night air. The stars above were silent witnesses, but her father's eyes missed nothing. A servant's betrayal bought with coins set the trap. George was seized before reaching her, beaten until blood stained the cobblestones. His mother's cries followed him into the night. By morning, Maria was dismissed, only to be allowed back under strict conditions. Ruby was locked in her room, windows boarded, phone confiscated. Don Carlos never spoke George's name again, as though he could erase him with silence. Ruby refused to eat. She cried until tears felt like treachery. The cherry blossoms fell, their petals crushed into the earth. Then, one quiet evening, she found a note tucked into the garden bench where they first met. weathered but unmistakably his. If this world ever lets us meet again, I'll be waiting under the stars, where no one owns the sky. Months later, on her 19th birthday, the estate swelled with a party she wanted no part of. Strangers in glittering masks laughed like breaking glass. Don Carlos kept her close, his pride on display, while she felt like a ghost in her own skin. The cage was too heavy. She couldn't breathe. When her father's gaze turned, Ruby ran, through the gardens, past the cherry blossoms, toward the gate that had once promised escape. The guards shouted, their boots pounding behind her, but she didn't stop. She didn't see the truck. It came hurtling around the corner, its driver lost to drink and shadows. The screech of tires was too late. Ruby turned, eyes wide, and then the world went black. She was gone before the guards reached her, her body lying still under the indifferent stars. When the news of Ruby's death reached George, his heart refused to believe it. Desperate, he raced to the Alessandro mansion, clinging to the fragile hope that it was all a cruel mistake, that he would find her in the garden, seated on their bench, perhaps lost in a book, her auburn hair catching the light. But reality struck like a blade. She was gone, truly gone. His knees buckled as grief ripped through him, and he wept openly, his sobs raw and unrestrained, like a child robbed of his dearest treasure. His mother gathered him into her arms, her own tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Upstairs, Don Carlos sat alone in his study, the weight of silence pressing against the walls. He held a photograph of Ruby, his hands trembling as tears streamed freely. Over and over, in a voice barely more than a breath, he whispered, "My sweet child, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I failed you." At the funeral, George stood before the coffin, clutching a single cherry blossom petal. His gaze lingered on her still form, his mind replaying her smile, her laughter, the way her eyes lit up when she spoke of dreams. Tears blurred his vision until the world became a haze of grief. When it was over, he turned away from the mansion that now felt like a mausoleum. Rain poured from the heavens as if sharing his sorrow. He walked slowly, each step heavy, the petal still in his hand, its delicate softness a cruel reminder of the love he could no longer hold.